Hello again. Now, President Matamela Ramaphosa is set to announce changes to his cabinet at around 7 o'clock tonight. Pressure has been mounting on the president to fill vacant positions in his executive, including appointing a new deputy president following the resignation of David Mabuza just a few weeks ago. Uncertainty is rife as who will make it into this reconfigured cabinet. Will there be a lot of musical chairs moving around or some fresh faces? We don't know. We'll find out later. But our senior reporter, Siphamandla Goge, is following that story for us as we begin our build-up this afternoon to 7 p.m. Let's go live to him now. He's at the Union Buildings. Good afternoon, Ngome. Well, the clock is ticking. We are getting nearer to 7 o'clock, that moment that most South Africans have been waiting for since the end of the ANC's 55th National Conference early January. The moment is approaching.
Indeed, that moment of truth is fast approaching for President Cyril Matamela Ramaphosa and his cabinet ministers, members of the ANC's National Executive Committee, but most importantly for South Africans in general. The question is, will the changes that he will be making and announcing today help him improve his government's efficiency, the speed of providing basic services to the people of South Africa? He is presiding over a government that is struggling with an ailing economy, struggling state-owned entities, including Eskom, the issue of unemployment, poverty, inequality, violent crime, a country that has been grey-listed. So there is a lot that needs to change in South Africa, and many South Africans will be eagerly awaiting to hear whether the changes that he will be announcing at 7 p.m. will help him and his administration change all those socio-economic challenges that the country is going through. This should be, as you know, it ought to have been about South Africans to say what will be the benefits to South Africans. Will they see a government that will be working with speed when it comes to the provision of basic services? Will this change the way government does things? Is he going to deploy capable people, very hard-working people? Well, we can only find out at 7 p.m. when he announces those changes, but many people will be paying attention to the Minister of Electricity, who has been described as a project manager really for Eskom, and the Deputy President. Remember, there is a vacancy following the resignation of former Deputy President David Mabuza. Transport Minister Fikile Mbalula ought to have resigned by now if he hasn't already. I'm sure that the President will be receiving his letter of resignation because he was elected by the branch delegates of the ANC to be full-time at Luthuli House. There was a vacancy created by the departure of Ayanda Hlodlo. So a number of positions have been vacant. The question is, will this be a total overhaul of the executive, or the president will just patch up here and there? Professor Dirk Coetzee is here to help me answer those questions. Prof, thank you very much for your time. First of all, just a simple question. What do you expect out of this cabinet reshuffle this evening?
Well, I think a mix. First of all, there will be quite a number of new members who are coming from outside Parliament. They were prepared for this. They have been sworn in, some of them already, including the ANC's Deputy President. We've heard now that even Ibrahim Patel has now moved out of one of the two positions, while both positions are actually now open, of ministers who are not members of Parliament. So that creates almost 6 possibilities for President Ramaphosa to bring in persons from outside Parliament. And I think this is the significance for me to start with, is the fact that in the past he didn't do that. He used members of Parliament, sitting members of Parliament. Now he's moving from outside. And I think this is in order to create the impression for the public that he's trying to renew. He's trying to renew the cabinet to some extent. But at the same time, the impression he creates also, he doesn't want to go too far with it. So it's this very balanced approach that he wants to do, a little bit, but significantly, but not a complete overhaul of the cabinet. And I think the public would like to see a more radical change in terms of, for example, something like local government, which hasn't received yet in these debates about cabinet reshuffle quite a lot of attention. Then obviously electricity is one of the main focuses now. And then other aspects like the police, intelligence, and so on. So I think it's going to be a mixed bag. But President Ramaphosa has always had safe hands, and therefore he doesn't want to go too far in making a radical change. But what is going to happen tonight will give us an indication of how does President Ramaphosa see himself within the ANC. Is he now strong, on his feet, without any challenges from factions or other groups within the ANC, or is he still cautious as in the past?
What is in it for South Africans? Because many people will be saying, yes, this is about balancing internal party politics and dynamics, of course motivated by the outcome of the December Congress of the ANC. But really speaking and honestly speaking, will this improve the efficiency of government and delivery of, basic services?
Well, we all hope. That is absolutely necessary. But I think one of the challenges for everyone is that this is going to be a short-term government, a short-term cabinet, because the election is going to be in 12, 14 months from now. So it's almost a transitional or interim arrangement and it's going to be, I guess, the team that he needs to have for his campaign to be able to win the election again. That is possibly how he is going to look at this cabinet. So it's not anymore that he doesn't have simply enough time to change around everything, but he must create an impression that there are indeed changes in the pipeline, and that the situation is now different from what it was 6 months or so ago, or before December last year. But I think to be realistic, one can't say, well, it's going to be a completely new situation in South Africa.
Because I was going to bring in that point that this is a serious question of continuity and change. It's a difficult balancing act.
That is indeed so. And I think we've become used to President Ramaphosa as approaching it like that. He doesn't want to be sort of revolutionary in the way in which he approaches situations. He wants to be cautious and make sure that he remains in the dominant position, but at the same time that there is this agenda of renewal, that there's some legitimacy for it, that it has a credibility for it, and that people can see he's serious with it. So that's that very delicate balance which is so typical of President Ramaphosa.
Which talks to his leadership style, if you look at it in the sense that Ayanda Dlodlo has been gone for a very long time. Fikile Mbalula elected in December. There ought to have been a vacancy there at Transport. David Mabuza, former deputy president, resigning. The president saying, well, hang on, stay put for now. What do you make of his leadership style of taking very long and taking his time in taking decisions? His critics have been saying he's indecisive.
Yes, that's indeed what they are saying. But I personally say this is the DNA of Ramaphosa. That is the Ramaphosa style. Whether it's under pressure or not, whether there's political opposition or not against him, I think it goes back to the time when he was the negotiator. That's typical negotiation style. You have to consult. Whether you are a union negotiator or a constitutional negotiator, when he went into business, apparently he did the same, to the detriment of many people who felt they have to take decisions quicker. But this, I would say, is typical Ramaphosa style, whether he is under pressure or not.
Let's talk about the names here. The issue of the Minister of Electricity, there are names that are being thrown around. Dr. Kgotsientsho Ramakgopa, former mayor of Tshwane, who's the current NEC member of the ANC, head of infrastructure and investment. And let's talk about when it comes to transport as well. In terms of names, which persons do you think the president will consider? Of course, all of it is speculation for now. The question is who will be in, who will be out?
I think those that he brought to Parliament, and that is Parkstall, Sihle Zikalala, Ramaphosa, Ramakgopa, and then even someone like, for example, David Makura. They became very quiet around him, but in December last year, he regarded himself as a very strong contender for this.
Even though they've made him the head of their political school.
Yes, that is so, but these type of appointments are never permanent, And then the other Ramakgopa, it becomes a bit of a family affair almost, for the position of electricity. So these are the obvious names that's been in the pipeline now. I think What is not completely excluded is also changes in portfolios, that ministers are moving from one portfolio to another. Beckett Kelly as Minister of Police, maybe there's talk about that he might go to intelligence and that there's a new Ministry of Intelligence again. Then there's obviously the talk about what about Pravin Gordhan, to what extent, because his department, strictly speaking, should become phased out over time. So is he going to stay there until next year, or is he going to move out? We will have to see.
Perhaps we are in for a shock. Maybe we could hear President Ramaphosa announcing that one of the senior ministers would have resigned.
Yes, that's another possibility. Either resigned or some of them being left out.
Well, thank you very much for time, Prof. Prof. Dirk Coetzee, basically giving us his analysis and expectations ahead of that eagerly awaited announcement by President Cyril Matamela Ramaphosa on how he plans to reconfigure his executive.